Right. Hey everyone, I'm Klloo. So, there's a couple leaked cards floating about, right? And regardless of validity, I think it's more so the design space that I really want to look into when looking at these cards. So here we go. Here's the two cards. We'll start there, right? So yeah, their quality not fantastic. I've done my best to try and blow them up and make them legible, or at least my interpretation of the cards. But either way, right? Ranger, I think, is definitely a definite for high seas, right? It's been a few sets. Ranger fits the build. It's just the other two, right? So again, I would like to see Ranger Merchant Bard, but I would put more money on Ranger Pirates Necro, right? As the try of high seas. But we'll start off with these cards. So we have two: Sea Monster Map and Abyssal Harpoon. Now, very, very interesting. And I wanna actually zero in on Abyssal Harpoon first, because we go back, right, to last year when we got the great book burning of Rathe and some notable bans by way of Cash In and Art of War. There's 2 points in that little explanation behind their banning that I do want to zero in on. So starting off with Art of War, right, this passage right here, there is a lot more valuable design space we want to explore in the coming years that Art of War would continue to exploit if it remained legal. And the main thing they're talking about there is basically cards that present as Art of War fodder, right? So basically generate an attack action of some sense that you could then banish with Art of War and bypass its usual cost, right? So in that scenario, if we go back to Abyssal Harpoon, well, Abyssal Harpoon kind of starts to make sense, right? Because it is a token, it is something you create, it has ephemeral, like Crouching Tigers, so that is, again, sort of in line with what they were outlining with Art of War, and I would highly assume that this is sort of the set where we get to the main premise behind a lot of those bannings, right? Even Cash In mentions, it's a preemptive ban around them creating more gold effects, and High Seas, Pirate Focus, I'd assume we see some gold effects in High Seas as well. But yeah, Abyssal Harpoon, 0 cost, ephemeral, piercing 2, right? But I could say it piercing 1. To me, the little curvature of the tiny card definitely looks like piercing 2. And go again, it's a 4 attack, ranger action arrow attack, right? So again, it would be Art of War fodder if Art of War was not banned. So yeah, it's an interesting design. I think it shores up Riptide. So I would, with these cards in mind, I would say Riptide is probably kind of valid, right, to appear in High Seas, either as is, because he's still low enough in terms of Living Legend points, or with a slight tweak, maybe some direct connection to Abyssal Harpoon if Abyssal Harpoon does end up being a real card. But in conjunction with Abyssal Harpoon, we also have Sea Monster Map, right? So 0 cost, pitch for 2 yellow, right? Your next arrow attack this turn gets +2, and then if you have no cards in your arsenal, you may banish an arrow from your graveyard. Now again, point of conjunction, right? Looking at the little squeezed card, it could either be you may banish a card from your graveyard, but I think again, because of the spacing, right, and the thickness, I do think it's an arrow from your graveyard, and it makes a lot more sense to be an arrow than a card from your graveyard. And then if you do create an Abyssal Harpoon token in your hand, now, Abyssal Harpoon token, that wording is not out of line, right? So if you go back to Crouching Tiger, yes, Crouching Tiger never mentions token, but if we look at Graphene Chicillery, right, however you say it, that and all the wording connected to that card now refers to it as it is, as a token. So attaching token to Abyssal Harpoon there, I do think would be the correct syntax, right, for the card. So I don't think that's a point of contention, right, if you're trying to, find rationale for these cards not being true. So yeah, 0 cost, next arrow gets +2. So a 0 cost yellow pump for 2 is already nice, right? That's just normal stats. It's instant as well, and then it has reload. So it's not directly Riptide fodder, right? Because obviously if you're playing this from hand, you don't need the reload, but it is definitely a nice effect to, again, be able to get rid of an arrow from your graveyard and get another arrow back, right? Basically, that whole concept of creating these Abyssal Harpoons, and why I like it for Riptide, would be because then you can take a more aggressive trap basis for Traptide, right? With a few choice arrows, and those arrows, once you've played, then still become a valid resource by way of cards like Sea Monster Map that would then convert them into Abyssal Harpoons for you to still have enough attacks to get you over the finish line, right? You still do fatigue, you still chip away with traps, but then you still have enough arrows to present, right? So yeah, I do like both of these cards. I think, again, design-wise, they seem good, right? They seem like a valid decision by LSS. Again, Abyssal Harpoon in line with Art of War, Sea Monster Map in line with just stat values, the current syntax, but Piercing 2 on the Abyssal Harpoon, I don't think I generally like that, right? Piercing 1, again, it could be Piercing 1. Piercing in general on the arrow is quite nice, right? Again, at 0 for 4 means you're trying to yoink 2 cards from your hand. If you tie in some other arrow buff effects, it's definitely really, really nice. Piercing 2, I think, is just too strong, right? Again, it just completely disallows equipment. At least, again, with Piercing 1, you could, block with a 2 equipment and 1 card from hand, right? And shut down any effects. But generally speaking, most of the effects that also tie to arrows and doing something, bad for your opponent come with an extra buff. And I think Piercing 2, in that sense, is just complete overkill on Abyssal Harpoon. But, it's a harpoon, so it does kind of make sense, right? Yeah, it's interesting. What shoots it, right? Because while it is an arrow attack, does it really fit with a bow? No, kind of not, right? So, yeah, curious design there. Sea Monster Map, right? Obviously, directly pirate theme, right? I like it, right? Azalea likes it. Reload, general buff, and then again, the fact that it creates an arrow is definitely really, really nice, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I do like these 2 cards. I don't know, again, how comfortable I would say that they're true, right? If they are. Again, Abyssal Harpoon's just allowing to ease up on deck design for Ranger as a whole. Definitely seems nice, right? What do you think? Do you like the designs of these cards? Would you tweak them a little bit? Do they seem, in line with current LSS printing, right, for card design? Maybe if Sea Monster Map was a 1 buff, right? Is 2 really over the line, right? So generally speaking, you play Sea Monster Map and it's equivalent to a 0 cost 6 power arrow that you can stick in your arsenal straight away because the creation effect comes first. That also has Piercing 2, right? I'm not crazy, that seems way too strong to be in line with current design, right? Especially then if you can pump it. So, you've done enough with your generic arrows. You still have, a 0+3, 0+3, Sea Monster Map, right? That's a really, really disgusting arrow that's kind of really easy to set up. So, yeah, I do think that's a little overtuned. And again, Abyssal Harpoon with Piercing 2 definitely seems overtuned, but they're interesting cards nonetheless, right? Again, I do really think that Rangers are definite for high seas. It's just whether or not you think Pirate will be an actual class or Pirate is more the thematics, right? But yeah, again, I'd go Ranger, Pirate, Necro more so than Ranger, Merchant, Bard, even though I'd really like to see Merchant, Bard. And again, going back to their wording about cash-in. So cash-in is not currently a problem, but as gold becomes more prevalent, the cost to draw 2 cards becomes lower and lower. We're banning cash-in before that time comes. Again, if this is the set in mind for Art of War, this is the set in mind probably for cash-in, and, when else are they going to stick gold into it, right? We've already had the whole arena theme, unless we, go back and have Arena 2. I could see, a Carnival featuring gold heavily. The High Seas definitely feels like the set to again touch on gold. So yeah, we'll have to see what comes. But anyway, that'll probably do. Let me know what you think, right? You're for these cards or against these cards? Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See ya.